What up, it's Josra. So this video is different from my usual videos. I will be reading off a script for most of the video, but might go off script if necessary. If this isn't the video you're expecting, you can feel free to click off. But if not, get ready because this might be my longest video yet. Before we begin, I want to clarify that I'm not making this video out of hatred for the Neptunia series. I'm making this video because I'm a fan of the series. I don't even think Josra would exist without Neptunia. Even parts of my designs are references to Neptunia. For example, the earrings that you can clearly see, and the ring that you can barely see, but I included anyways. I hope these problems get fixed in the future. I'm mainly going to be addressing my issues with the Neptunia franchise. I don't know if other people feel this way about the franchise, but this is my opinion. I will not go into detail about any of the newer games as I haven't played them yet to see if they address any of the problems I list. The games I will not discuss in detail are Sisters vs. Sisters, Game Maker Revolution, and Rebirth 3. The grinding aspect of Neptunia is so bad that it has become a meme. To show how bad the grinding is, I went out of my way to 100% Rebirth 1 to get footage for this montage I'm going to roll.
Neptune Break!
So that was even half the footage I got from 100%ing Rebirth 1, and that is generally the grind you'll see once you unlock the XD drive. Because the number of times you get done with an area or cutscene and are under level is baffling. There have been times when I've done all available side quests in a new chapter and I'm still under leveled for the next area I unlocked. I would even go out of my way to fight every enemy in the dungeon and I'm still under leveled for the boss. My gameplay the moment I unlock EXE moves starts to devolve to me just spamming rush combos so I can just start using the overpowered EXE moves. I wouldn't be complaining this much about the grind if they didn't release overpowered DLC that allows you to skip grinding, knowing full well it's a problem. These DLCs are so overpowered that two people can play the same game and have vastly different experiences just because one of them has the DLC characters and weapons that allow them to skip the grind. I got so sick of grinding that when I played through Rebirth 2, I bought a DLC weapon pack just so I wouldn't have to grind. Also, some of these DLC characters have some broken abilities that you can lock early on, which just trivialize the game. Even if you decide to play the game vanilla, there are times when it takes characters away from your party, and they will still be at the same level as when they left the party. So if you still want to use that character, you have to go out of your way to grind levels if you still want to use them. I also know that there are dungeons that you can lock that are better for grinding. I know about the plan system, but that goes down another rabbit hole for the next segment. The remake/plan system is fundamentally flawed. The amount of hours you need to sink in just to get the items and dungeons through it is not worth it. Multiple items are locked behind this mechanic to incentivize you to use it, but it backfires. When I first found out about the remake system, I just brushed it off as something I didn't need to use because it looked like a waste of time. Until I found out there are better dungeons for grinding levels that you can get from using the remake/plan system. I then had to look up multiple guides to get the items I wanted because they are locked behind multiple dungeons that you need to unlock to even start the process of locking the one item or dungeon you want. Even when you get the plan, you still need to craft the plan you got with item drops from monsters or items that are found on the floor in dungeons, which are RNG. Some of these drops have low drop rates which cause you to grind even more to get the drops you need. So to make the grind easier on yourself, you need grind through plans to lock the dungeons that is good for grinding. Do you see my problem with the system?
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Oh, in that case, let me get a biggie bag. It took me hours to unlock the dungeon I even needed to unlock the item I wanted. I also forgot to mention that you can miss plans during your playthrough, so if you want to make a certain dungeon, you have to play through the game again on New Game Plus. Even if you do have a plan you need, sometimes you get locked out of making it because you need an item drop from an enemy that only spawns if you have the add enemy plan. that you missed because a chirper only spawns in one chapter. This then makes you play through the game again so that you can get the add enemy plan to get the drop you need to make the dungeon. The remake system is also tied to another mechanic, which is storage. And once you max it out, you can no longer create any new dungeons or items until you find more storage. Until you find more storage, you can't do anything with this system. I know they made this system a lot better in V2, but I don't think it's a good enough fix for this mechanic. Now you need to wait for scouts to finish your scouting, which can take up to 30 minutes. It's been a long time since I actually played V2, so I can't exactly remember the scout mechanic that good. But from what I do remember is that certain scouts take like 30 minutes to finish their scouting. So you're just gonna have to bear with me. Neptunia also has a glaring issue where the developer likes to make characters from companies that help them with the game, which isn't necessarily a problem. The problem is that they like to make these characters integral to the story. So now, if they want to remake the game, they now need permission from these companies to use the characters because they don't have the right to use these characters. Which is why Rebirth 1 and the original game have different stories. Also, the original game has this funny mechanic where your character just uses a gun. This really doesn't have anything to do with the topic. I just felt like including it because people don't seem to know about it. I think it's funny just to see your character just pull out a gun.
Watch this. There.
Just in case you're wondering, that is not edited or modded in any way. That's just the base gameplay for the original Hyperdimension Neptunia. Just already talked about the story from Neptunia. The writing in this series needs some rework. The overly repetitive jokes become annoying after hearing them multiple times to the point where you know when they will be said because of the setup. The jokes already got on my nerve by the third time I heard the same joke, and they are used throughout the whole series. The characters are reduced to one character trope and developers still acts like it's funny. Developers also write themselves into corner because the only reason Rebirth 1 doesn't lead to any other game is because the true ending, they make characters turn into humans. Also, like I've said before, they made characters out of companies pivotal to the plot, which they have gone better at not doing this with time. If you play through the originals, you know that some characters are missing in the remake because of licensing issues. Speaking of missing characters, another writing related thing I've noticed is one of the main characters after the first game gets no character development after the first game. Vert is reduced to 2 character tropes and has a lack of character development past Rebirth 1. Vert as a character does not grow in any way. She stays the same character throughout most of the series. Also, the repetitive use of R4 is getting annoying. Even though she's not a main villain, she keeps appearing in more games as a side villain. I personally enjoy the games more when the main villain is someone new like they did in V2 and Rebirth 3. This also allows for more world building by expanding on a new villain. I've gotten tired of seeing R4 being written into every game as a throwaway villain, and I don't want her to appear in any future games beyond Game Maker Revolution. Her character arc has already ended. Just leave the character alone. Since we're talking about remakes, let me talk about how many remakes of the first game we've gotten. We now have 4 different versions of the original game. We have the original Hyperdimension Neptunia and the remake Rebirth 1, which I have no problems with. The Rebirth remake was actually needed because the original game did not age well. The problem I have is with the next 2. There's Rebirth 1 Plus, which is a Japan exclusive, but I'm still including it because it's still the first game and it's just Rebirth 1 with some enhancements. Then we got Neptunia Rebirth, which didn't need to exist. I'm pretty sure they made this game just so they can say they had a PS5 exclusive. Neptunia Reverse is also one of the laziest remakes I've seen. It is just a copy and paste of Rebirth with some visual enhancements. The only thing Reverse adds is a fishing minigame and dialogue from the original PS3 game. I have no idea where to insert this, but since it fits with the subject, V2R is also a game that did not need to exist. It has the same problems I have with Reverse, in which it's just a copy and paste of V2, but it's missing some of the DLC because of licensing issues. It took them 3 years to remake V2, and I'm pretty sure they released it so they can say they have a game that uses PlayStation VR, which I think is only used in a side mode where you can interact with the characters in VR. Now let's talk about the barrage of side games we got with no sign of a new mainline game until recently, when a developer said they now have an idea of which direction to go with the series. With the amount of side games that we got, I have to question who was asking for some of these games. Neptunia RPG is a spin-off we got from a brand new developer who has never made another game. I have no problems with the fact that Idea Factory decided to give a new development studio the right to make a spin-off. While researching this, I found out that apparently Idea Factory gave Artesian Studios 15 months to develop Super Neptunia RPG. Just in case anyone is wondering where I got this information from, I got it from an AMA that the developers were a part of, where someone asked how long they had to develop the game. So I'm putting all the blame on Idea Factory because this could have been prevented with more dev time. So a majority of the problems could have been fixed with more dev time. For example, one of the most glaring issues that you would notice from the first couple of minutes of gameplay is the fact that the foreground will obscure your vision of platforms and enemies. Another problem I had was with the quest. If I stopped in the middle of a quest, I would get lost trying to figure out what to do. But a lot of the problems I have with Super Neptunia RPG can be attributed to the fact it was this studio's first game, so I can't blame them for these problems. But I can blame IF for publishing it with these problems. The VTuber and Senran Kagura collab spin-offs are the only spin-offs I somewhat enjoyed. I like the Senran Kagura collab a lot more than Virtual Stars though. I still have problems with these games. It's just the VTuber game after the first area or two. The gameplay just starts to become monotonous and the combat turns into you spamming abilities to get rid of hordes of enemies. The VTubers are the main selling point of the game, but all they are is a glorified plot point and are just accessories that you would see in any other RPG that you can equip onto your character. By the time the game was released, a lot of the VTubers had already graduated and stopped making content. So even if the game got you interested in some of these VTubers, you would not even be able to watch them. VTubers will also appear on loading screens and introduce themselves, and that is pretty much all their involvement in this game. The story just boils down to the protagonist having to save VTubers and stop the antis. Also, this game has one of the worst DLCs I've ever seen in gaming. They advertise the VTubers as DLCs and you would assume they are playable characters, but no, they are just mass accessories you put on your characters. After they released this horrendous DLC, Idea Factory finally released 2 new playable VTubers. It was a pretty decent game, but I don't think I'll ever replay it. Neptunia Senran Kagura Wars is a game I don't have many problems with, but the main problem I have is with the length. The game has a pretty good combat system, I just wish the game was longer. You can beat this game in 10 hours, which is pretty short for the price of 50 bucks. It is hard to recommend this game when there are several other anime action RPGs, which are better for the same price or lower. The story wasn't all that great. I was expecting a groundbreaking story in the crossover game. I was already going in with low expectations, so I wasn't disappointed. But that does not excuse the fact that Neptunia Senran Kagura Wars has one of the laziest cutscenes I've ever seen. In case you haven't seen it, I'll pop it up on screen. I'm not joking, they straight up just drag a character's PNG down so it looked like they were jumping down a waterfall. That is not edited in any way. That is the base game's cutscene. I'm not sure why they added this. That's the only cutscene where this happens in, and it just is out of place. They could have just done a fade of black with the character splashing in the waterfall, but no, they added in this lazy cutscene. I'd consider this game to be better than Virtual Stars, but these games are what started my burnout of Neptunia. I started to play through the Rebirth trilogy right after Senran Kagura Wars and stopped at Rebirth 2 because I was getting sick of the gameplay loop and I hadn't played any games in the series for over a year until the making of this video. I had beaten 15 different games in the time that I stopped playing Neptunia, just to put it into perspective. I'll pop them up on screen if anyone is interested, but I played all those games because I saw them as better uses of my time. My burnout was caused by the yearly release of Neptunia spin-offs. I was playing each one of them when they were being released because I still wanted to support the series. But now I've lost hope in this series and I will no longer buy these spin-offs. I don't want to support the developers if they are going to continue releasing these soulless games. We've gotten 10 spin-offs within the 8-year gap since the last mainline game. It's almost been a decade since the last mainline game. And that's not even including the remakes. If we include those, we've gotten 13 games since the last mainline game. And even if we give the developer the benefit of the doubt and count the remake of V2 as technically a new mainline game, that is still a fucking 6-year gap with no news of a new mainline game's existence. The most recent spin-offs that were released, Sisters vs. Sisters, is a game that was teased like a new mainline game, which I was excited about until it got revealed it is technically a spin-off that happens after the last mainline game, V2, which pissed me off. Then we got a spin-off, Game Maker Revolution, which performed worse in sales because people were getting tired of the spin-offs and now want a new mainline game. And now just recently another spin-off was announced, which is $40, and the developers refuse to acknowledge the game is 3 to 4 hours long on the game listings. You can buy Elden Ring's DLC for that price. There are also a bunch of indie and other games you can buy for that price that are better games for the same or lower price. And it is showing in Japan. It is the worst performing game in the series to date, and it costs less than the announced price for the West. In Japan, it is $20 for the same game. They just need to stop releasing spin-offs yearly. No one is getting excited for them anymore and focus their resources on a new mainline game. By focusing their resources on a new mainline game, they can more accurately allocate allocate resources for spin-offs, so they can release something if it takes them longer than expected to develop a new mainline game. Because announcing recently that they now have an idea isn't enough to warrant the barrage of side games we've gotten. If we had at least gotten an announcement trailer for a new mainline game, I would have understood why they were releasing a bunch of spin-offs. But no, all we got was an announcement that they knew what direction to take the series in, with no guarantee it'll even be revealed soon. With the way this series is going, I wouldn't be surprised if they cancel all projects because they deem it as a commercial failure. That is all I have to address for this video. Again, I'm making this video in hopes the developers fix these problems. Hopefully with the 15th anniversary of Neptunia coming up next year, they could turn around this franchise by announcing a new mainline game. If Compile Heart or Idea Factory announces another spin-off for the 15th anniversary, I highly doubt the Neptunia series will continue because of how badly the spin-offs are selling. I don't even think I'd still be a fan of the series if it wasn't for Purple Heart, and it just sucks to see what's happening to this series. I'm no longer going to support this series if they just keep releasing these games as cash grabs. I want to see the series succeed, but if the developers keep going down this route where they're just milking the series for money, I'd rather just let the series die than tarnish the reputation of the Neptunia series at this point. At the end of the day, the Neptunia series was never trying to be the best RPG, it was just trying to tell a compelling story about these 4 goddesses, and I believe it succeeded. Let me know if you guys like this type of content, and I'll make more of these video essay type videos. I got some ideas planned if people like it. If you made it this far, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It'll be very much appreciated. I hope you all had a good week, and I'm out.